Hello and welcome to Legal Connect on iBrandTV. I am Benneth Joseph. And here on the program, we're looking at the many issues affecting society, even to its very cradle, the family. Sometimes these issues could be so complicated that one would need the right understanding of the law to be able to analyze it and to put it in context. Today on the program, we'll focus on a very important topic, on the topic of divorce and the many stigmatization around that conversation. Joining us in the studio to put the issues in context is no other than the very insightful barrister Aronke Omame, popularly known as the Sisi lawyer. Barrister, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now let's dive right into it. Your name, Sisi lawyer, is something that I find very interesting. What informed that creation?
I created it.
Okay.
Although I must say that after I created it, I then discovered online that there was an elderly woman who's also called Cecilia. Luckily, maybe I should say luckily, she's deceased now, so I'm the only Cecilia.
Okay.
But I created it. I created it because I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
But at that time, there was a lot of talk about lawyers shouldn't advertise themselves.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't really advertising law, but I didn't want to be misunderstood.
Oh.
And at the same time, I wanted people to know that I'm talking from the perspective of a lawyer. So about the issues that I would be talking about. And so that's why I created that.
Created that name. Now, when we went through your profile, we realized that at some point in time, the interest, I think it was in the UK at the time, the interest was more directed towards lands and property laws and those kinds of things. But at some point, there was a movement from that to family law and those kinds of things. What informed that shift into family, marriage, relationship? What informed that?
When I went to live in the UK, I qualified as a solicitor.
Oh, okay.
And at the time that I was working in the UK, the place I wanted to work at, the only vacancy they had was land law or property law.
Interesting.
And I stayed there for, I think it was 3 years. And I actually rose up to become the head of the department.
Oh,
so
great.
It was new for me. It was a new area in the sense that their laws, to a large extent, are different from ours, mortgages and so on like that. So I found it very challenging. I liked it. I worked at it. But then I came back home because it was too cold for me. So I came back home to Nigeria. And family law had always been my passion in Nigeria. Now, the laws that they have in the UK about mortgages, about land holdings, is different from ours here
in Nigeria.
And so I just went back to my previous passion.
Okay.
And decided that, well, also, even in family law, there is property law.
Okay.
So I do have another page on Facebook that's called The Title Holder, where I talk about land law and tenant.
So literally you're an embodiment of experience, lands, property, now family law. And what we'll be looking at today primarily focuses on the family, relationships, and those kinds of things. But let's go back to our audience, just in case anyone is just joining us. This is Legal Connect on iBrandTV, and joining us here in the studio today to help us look at a very interesting topic which has to do with divorce and the stigmatization around it is barrister Aronke Omame, popularly known as the Sisi lawyer on social media. She joins us to put the issues of divorce in context, and we'll take a short break, and when we return, she'll be telling us a lot more about divorce and all that you need to know about its dynamics. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to the program. This is Legal Connect on iBrandTV, and I am your host, Benneth Joseph. Today we're looking at divorce and the dynamics of the conversation. Joining us in the studio to put the issues in context is barrister Aronke Omame, popularly known as the Sisi lawyer on YouTube, on Instagram, and on all social media platforms. Barrister, once again, it's good to have you on the program, but let's dive right into it. Divorce is a big topic around the world, in Africa and in Nigeria. These developments, what are we not getting right? Because, again, one would think that marriage is supposed to be a really interesting thing and build families, because for me, it's like the cradle of society. But maybe we're not doing something right, and so we have this spike in divorce rates and all of those kinds of things. What do you think is playing out right now in society in the area of divorce?
People are getting to their realities.
Oh, interesting.
I think that to a large extent, people are not marrying right.
Hmm.
And when the foundation is rocky, what do you expect?
Hmm.
Marriages will break, relationships will break up.
Hmm.
So when we talk about divorce, you cannot talk about divorce without talking about the foundations of marriage. And also living intentionally. I always say one thing to people, that if you're well or you're not, or you're ill, whether you are well or you're not well, you go to medical checkup.
Hmm.
Nobody checks up on their marriages. Nobody does intentional living of their marriages. And so what happens is that at the end of the day, that something is eating at that marriage that a lot of us are not willing to openly accept.
Hmm.
And then we end up being divorced.
So you're saying when people marry for the wrong reasons, right, divorce is inevitable?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But relationship breakup is inevitable. Because there are many people who live together but who are not together.
Live together and they're not together.
To you and I, they appear like Mr. and Mrs. But really, they're just living together as co-tenants.
Interesting. Now, the Nigerian constitution, when it comes to divorce, I know there's something on the Matrimonial Causes Act and those kinds of things. I'd like you to help us understand that area of the law. What do we need to know when it comes to divorce and the Nigerian law especially? How do we have an understanding of what to do just in case someone finds themselves in at that point in their life where they have to take that decision to divorce, and they need to be sure that they are in line?
You need to see either a divorce coach, which I am,
Okay.
or you need to see a marriage counselor, which I am.
Oh.
Now, a lot of the times when a marriage breaks up, there are, aside from the legal issues, there are also the psychological issues of divorce. And divorce, at the end of the day, is a death of a relationship. So there's grief in divorce. There is the legal process as well.
Okay.
And a lot of people, they hide under separation, thinking that, well, okay, I'm not divorced, but at the same time, I'm not living with this guy or this woman.
There's a difference.
Well, there's a difference
Between divorce and being legally separated. And sometimes it can be quite confusing, even for me. And I'm sure a lot more of our presenters might want you to take your time and break that down for us. So when someone is divorced and when someone is legally separated, can you help us understand
Let me
that?
first of all say that in my 41 years experience as a lawyer,
Okay.
I have never heard that the court has granted legal separation. To be legally separated means the court says you are legally separated. But before you can get legally separated, you have to prove everything as if to say you are getting divorced.
Oh.
When you now say, I don't want divorce, I want legal separation, then they say, all right, you're legally separated because you have shown us that he committed adultery or he deserted you or whatever it is. And you're legally separated, you're not divorced. So you're there, you're not there.
What are the grounds upon which one can file? I mean, from your experience, you said almost 40 years.
I didn't say almost 40 years, I said over 40 years.
Over 40 years. Well, now, what do you think are the grounds upon which partners, couples could say, we want to apply for a divorce?
Let me first of all say what the law says is that there's only one reason for divorce.
Okay.
Now, I know that gets confusing.
Okay. All right.
There's only one reason for divorce, and that is that the marriage has broken down irretrievably. You cannot reconcile it anymore. It's almost like Humpty Dumpty that fell down and they couldn't put together. That's what our law says. Now, I know that on the streets you hear all kinds of things. They say that it's for irreconcilable differences. There's no such thing in Nigerian law. It is that the marriage has broken down irretrievably. But the law says that on the basis of, I think it's 7 or 8 facts, you can show irretrievable breakdown. And that is where people get confused and say, when they say if I'm separated for 2 years, they say if I'm separated for 1 year. Now, there's 7 facts. I think there's 7. One of them is that there's a willful or persistent refusal to consummate the marriage. That means that there has never been sexual intercourse
in the marriage.
That is a fact. There's some people who will live with it. So it is not an irretrievable breakdown. It says adultery. There's some people who live with their partner's adultery. So it's not an irretrievable breakdown. There's desertion. There are some people who they're living together, as I've said, but they've deserted each other. They have different pots, they have different pans. But it may not be irretrievable breakdown. There is behavior that is so unreasonable that I cannot be expected to live with. But some people behave unreasonably and they still live together. It's not irretrievable.
And I think that's where what you said earlier comes in, where there's a place of legal coach and those kinds of things which you are into, for couples to be able to know at what point it's necessary to walk out of that relationship. And but we would like to look at other issues when it comes to divorce, and that would like to look at the children, because we know that when it comes to separation and divorce and those kinds of things, it's not the couples alone who get affected by that decision. We know the children, we have the children, and then sometimes there's this issue around who takes what property, who takes custody of the child. We would like to look at all of that, but of course, let's go back to our audience and say, if you're just joining us, this is Legal Connect on iBrandTV, and we have in the studio with us Barrister Aronke Omame, popularly known as the Sisi Lawyer on all her social media platforms. We'll take a short break to pay a few bills, and when we return, we would like to look at the children in matters of divorce and property, and who gets what, who keeps custody of the children. And when we come back, Barrister Aronke Omame will help us put that in context. Go nowhere.